Hello, I'm Jen Ives, this is Lobotomy World, and you are listening to Lobotomy World. Lobotomy World is the podcast that is dedicated to queer and trans issues from a bloody UK British perspective, innit? Because I am that. I am queer / trans / British. British are my pronouns. How are we? Have we had a good week? Have we been doing all the things that we wanted to do? I had a week. I had something of a week. Today is my birthday. That's something important to make you aware of. As you can see here, there's a banner up that says happy birthday. And when I say it's my birthday, I don't mean like, oh, I recorded this and then I uploaded it on my birthday. No, I mean today is literally the day of my birth. Not as in today is the day I was born. That would be weird. Imagine if I'd only just been born. No, I mean it is actually my birthday. And rather than spending it with my family, my boyfriend, I've said, no, I'm sorry, Christian. That's my boyfriend. I'm sorry, no, I'm going to lock myself away in the bedroom, put up some pictures behind me, and I'm going to record a podcast for 2 hours. Obviously, that's not the only thing that I've done today. I've actually had quite a nice day so far. Recording this right now, it's like 4:30, so don't worry. I've had plenty of festivities, and they're not over yet. I'm 35, which is alarming. That's an alarming age to be. I don't know how old my viewership is. Well, actually, that's not true. I do know how old my viewership is. I have unlocked YouTube analytics. I can go in there and I can see exactly how old you all are. And according to that sounds weird, doesn't it? That's not what I mean. I just mean like, it gives you information. And my audience is, it says like 25 to 35 or something, which I guess lines up. You know, that's where I want to be. I'm not trying to I don't want to attract people that are too young because they're stupid. Let's be real. Young people are out. Okay? Young people are very yesterday. Old people also, I'm not ageist. I don't have a problem with older people. God knows I'm getting there. But I don't know. There's a sort of cut-off point, isn't there? You can get too old. Many say. Many have said that there's, it's okay if you're a little bit old, but there's a limit, isn't there? You can get too old, and then you become craggy and conservative and weird. And having dentures. There's nothing wrong with having dentures. But if you're old as well, and then you put the dentures in a glass when you go to bed, it's like, my podcast probably isn't for you. This is a cool podcast for mid-30 somethings and people just turning 30. I'll tell you, when I look in the mirror and I go, God, 35, where did the time go? Which is funny because, when I was a teenager, I didn't think I would live to 20, which sounds bleak. That is a bleak outlook. But I don't know, I think a lot of trans people in particular can relate to that, maybe. It's kind of, you go through your life thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to achieve what I want to. Everything feels so impossible. Are people going to accept me? Blah, 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 blah. And you think, well, God, if I don't do it, I'll just kill myself by 20. I'm not endorsing that. No one should do that. But that is sort of what you think sometimes. And I didn't. Okay, I didn't do it. No way did I do it. I pushed through, so now I'm here. 35. And you don't get to 35 without a little bit of resolve, a little bit of ambition. The sort of tenacity, resolve and ambition that leads you to doing a 2-hour podcast episode on your birthday. Who else is doing that? Tell me, in the podcasting sphere, who else is doing a podcast on their birthday and putting up a happy birthday banner? My boyfriend didn't put up that banner. I found it under my bed from years ago. And I thought, that's going on the wall. Because it's my birthday. Did I mention it's my birthday? I've had a really nice day so far. I'll tell you what I did, okay? I got up, woke up very early. But nowadays when I wake up early, it's not in that sense of like, I'm excited, I want to open my presents. It's just I wake up early now naturally because I fall asleep really early. I'm usually nodding off at about 9:30 and I like push through till 10. But I'm sleeping, you know. I'm nodding off early. And then I wake up early and I don't know what to do with myself. So I get up, I have a coffee, have some breakfast. And this morning, there was an added dimension to that, which is, obviously, I had some presents, okay? Just because you're 35 doesn't mean that you don't get presents anymore. And I'm not going to list all the presents that I got. That would be wrong, actually. There's lots of people out there who don't get presents. There's people out there who don't have any loved ones in their life, and I wouldn't want to rub it in. That being said, I did get a nice book and a nice record and a nice dress I'm going to wear tonight when we go out for dinner. Because that's what we're doing. We're going to go out for dinner. That's the nighttime activity. We're going to a Georgian restaurant. I know. I've never been to a Georgian restaurant before. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm looking forward to it. Saw my dad yesterday. He came around for the, what do you call it? The sort of, the birthday before the storm. He came round, we went out, we had dinner as well. We went for Indian food, and it was flipping lovely, actually. I really had a nice time. Today, though, me and my boyfriend, as part of the birthday celebrations, we went bowling. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of you out there that are thinking, Jen, that's lame. That's rubbish. You're 35. You shouldn't be going bowling. You should be, I don't know, what do old people do? You should be having high tea at the corn exchange. Or you should be going on a hike around the Hebrides. No. I wanted to go bowling. I wanted to do that. Okay, because me and my boyfriend, we never went bowling. That was always a thing that I felt was missing. The way we got together, it was so natural that we sort of bypassed all of the cheesy dating stuff. And usually my go-to date, the thing that I want to do, is I want to go bowling. I don't know why exactly. It might be something that's sort of like deeply embedded in my psyche because, I don't know, maybe there were a few birthdays as a kid that I maybe wasn't invited to. That's a very real thing. That's a very potent memory that I have of not being invited to other school kids' birthday celebrations. Obviously, I was invited to some. I remember going to a few cinema trips. I remember going to see the original Rugrats, the movie, for a birthday celebration. And when I was a kid, cinemas, they were big news. Cinemas were in vogue. There aren't any cinemas anymore. They're all evangelical prayer centres. Have you noticed that? Have you seen this? Where are all the cinemas going? They're all evangelical prayer centres. And that is an annoying thing, but at the same time, cinema is dying. And faith is on the rise. So, makes sense. At least the space is getting used. I was watching a video on Novara Media, my favourite platform, that said, it was like, is Christianity hip now? And they're not the only ones. I've noticed this, like, popping up around a few leftist spaces, sort of like, hey, is there a way to be religious but also kind of cool? Is there a way to be Catholic but also have one earring? Hey, is there a way to be a Scientologist but also have a mohawk? Hey, Hey, is there a way to be Mormon but also queer? I mean, probably. But do we need to? That's what I want to know. Anyway, birthdays. Yeah, I was invited to plenty of parties. Actually, I take it back. I was invited to loads. I went to my fair share of McDonald's birthday parties as a child. A lot of you youngsters now, you won't know this, but before McDonald's was a cool sort of army military green coffee shop slash restaurant hub like it is today. Before it was, they were selling mocha lattes and frappuccinos, and before they were marketing to trendy, affluent teens, McDonald's was for the babies. McDonald's was for the big poo-poo nappy wearing babies like me. That's what McDonald's was. That was McDonald's original demographic. It was the glory days, when fast food was marketed to children specifically. Not like today where adults eat fast food. What the hell? No, it was Happy Meals. It was ball pits. And the best one of all was McDonald's used to have a special room, a party room, where you could go in and you could all sit at one big table and they would bring your food in and you could just go nuts. You could throw pickles everywhere and you could have a balloon. And honestly, it's... people my age will know exactly what I'm talking about here. They'll be thinking, yeah, that was probably the best times of our lives. But nowadays, everything's sad and depressing. Except for Burger King, because they still put those little paper crowns on the table, don't they? And I have to say, whenever I see that, I think, good for you, Burger King. Good for you, keeping a little bit of fun there. Burger King hasn't tried to be like something that it's not really. I mean, they have with the menus a little bit, like Burger King being like, yeah, we offer the Angus steak bagel burger or whatever for adults. But for the most part, in terms of the decor and everything, it's like, yeah, we're basically a wimpy. What I'm trying to say is I was invited to plenty of kids' birthday parties. I remember one was a swimming party. I remember this girl, Bianca, who I'll be honest, I didn't really know her that well. But she still wanted me there at her party, and I remember feeling touched. I was like, oh great, I get to go to a primary school birthday shindig. But it was a swimming party. Like, you go to the swimming pool, the public swimming pool, and loads of kids all have floats and they go yippee. And I remember I was really enjoying it up to a point. I was really having fun because I love swimming. I'm a bit of a water baby. Or I was. I'm now a water adult. But I love having a swim. And I was really enjoying it when it was sort of like, yay, we're in the shallow end, we're having fun. But these kids, they were those sort of kids that they were, they were trying to act older than they were. I guess because it was Bianca's birthday, she was like, I'm a big girl, I'm an adult. I'm going to have a Lamborghini. She didn't have a Lamborghini, but that was the mentality, and so she was like, come on guys, everybody, let's go to the deep end. Let's get out of this shallow baby waters. Let's go to the deep end where you might die. Let's go to where if you drown, it's going to be a lot harder to dredge up your corpse. And the thing is, I wasn't ready for that at the time. At this time, the deep end was still elusive to me. I hadn't got my 100 meters yet. I had my 50. I had that on an A4 printed certificate on my wall, but I didn't have the 100 meter. So although I was okay going up into the deep end, I didn't quite have the confidence to stay there. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about? And I have a very distinct memory of, at a certain point, deciding, no, I'm not going to go. I remember thinking, no, I'm going to stay here in the shallow end. Which is a problem because all of the kids, the cool older kids, they weren't older, but they were acting it. All of them, they went to the deep end and were having fun for ages, what felt like ages. And I opted to stay down the shallow end. And the only people that were down the shallow end was me and like Bianca's nan and like some other family. So yeah, I was the worst, just hanging out with them. But I'm old enough now, I get to have my own parties. And oh my God, that's what I had today. I went bowling with my boyfriend. We did it. We went bowling. We went to Lewisham Lanes, which again is nostalgic for me because I grew up in Lewisham. I'm a Lewisham kid. And it's basically the same in there, funnily enough, except that, well, there are some really profound differences. The layout is the same. You go in, the alley is still where the alley always has been. It would be hard to move the alley, and I don't know why you would do that. The alley has always been fine where it is. The bowling alley, I mean. No, one of the main changes is, and this is an unusual one that you don't really get a lot these days, there's lots of arcade machines in there. Loads, tons of them. I thought arcade machines were on the way out. I thought kids didn't really do arcades anymore. I thought it was all, about Fortnite, Minecraft, mobile phones. Well, funny you should say that because all of the arcade games in there were all in some way affiliated with one of those properties. So there was a Minecraft game that wasn't just Minecraft, it was like an arcade version of Minecraft. I don't know, I didn't play it. There was a Flappy Bird game. Do you remember Flappy Bird? That weird mobile phone app where you have to avoid the pipes and you're a bird, like that. That's in the arcade now. People paying to play that. But it was nice. I like arcades. I like the sound of the arcade, It's a horrible sound, but it's a nostalgic sound. One of the machines in there was doing something Dracula related. I don't know what it was. But every now and then you'd hear like a kind of a Dracula cackle, which was scary. It added a kind of an added tension to bowling. Like you were bowling in Nosferatu's lair. But the biggest change in bowling now, and this is one I've noticed in various, pretty much all bowling establishments, actually. Shoes. The bowling shoes. They've given up on that. That's one of those things where it's like, it was a fight that bowling alleys were having for years and years and years. It was like, if you're going to come bowling, you have to have bowling shoes. Not bring them. They have them. They rent them out for free. Or included in the price. But you know how it would be. You'd go in, they'd say, what's your size? And then you'd feel self-conscious. And you'd go, 6.5. Even though you're not a 6.5. You're a 7.5. And you go, okay, 7.5. And they go, we don't do that. We only do 8. So they give you an 8. And then you got these big, clowny bowling shoes on that's probably have all verrucas or whatever in them. I know they spray them with something, but come on, that's a placebo. What is in there? And I remember even back then, I'd always think, hold on, what do you mean? Like, why do I have to wear specific shoes to bowl here? Like, I don't see any professional bowling going on here. They don't do tournaments here. What are you worried about? The floor is wood. Am I going to scratch it? Well, I'm more likely to scratch it with these clumsy ass bowling shoes on that I'm probably going to trip over in. That's more likely than what, my trainers? My flats? Come on. But I think they've just fully given up on that now, because now when you go into most of these bowling places, they still have the shoes and you can rent them if you want, just so you get the full nostalgic experience. I don't know, maybe they saw someone renting shoes on Stranger Things. And these kids today, they're like, oh, I need to rent some shoes or whatever, like they did in Stranger Things. Millie Bobby Brown rented some shoes. But most people, they don't want to do it. They don't want to mess with it. No one wants to take their shoes off in public, in a public place. And the bowling alleys have got wise to this, you know. So now they're just like, listen, if it's trainers, you can do it. But I reckon they wouldn't even care these days if you were in 7-inch heels. I bet they'd let drag queens bowl, which I think should be illegal. I think should be banned, because there are kids there, isn't there? Kids bowling. Lewisham lanes. They've cut out they've like completely gone full on. They don't even have the area where you can rent shoes anymore. Like, they've got rid of that and they've replaced it with a Mario Kart game. So they know what they're doing, you know? But bowling is fun, isn't it? Isn't bowling fun? I'm happy to report that we played 3 games. Guess how many of the games I won out of the 3? All of them. Every single game. And listen, we don't play with the sides up. We don't do that. You know, when I see people playing with the sides up, I feel embarrassed for them. And I get angry. I get physically angry, emotional. And I go over there and I say, what the hell are you doing? Don't you know anything? Why are you playing with the sides up? Don't you want any risk in your life? Why don't you be more like me? Why don't you add a little bit of risk to your life? Why don't you live a little bit dangerously for a change for once in your life? And then they go, oh, but, you know, it's just we're here for my kid. They're like 9. And I go, okay, that's fair enough. But yeah, I won all of them. In fact, at one point, my boyfriend was bowling and he forgot to let go and he threw the ball backwards. And that is something that you only usually see in cartoons or You've Been Framed videos. But it actually happened. And I didn't manage to get it on video, unfortunately. But what I did get on video was this clip here that I'm going to put in here of me getting a strike effortlessly. Roll the clip, Jen. What do you make of that then? Pretty impressive, I think you'll agree. I'll be honest, I love bowling. I don't really like many sports. I don't really like any sports, actually. But bowling's not a sport, is it, really? I mean, it is, obviously. If you ask a professional bowler if it's a sport, it's a bit like if you ask someone if wrestling is real, they'll go, of course. But is it? It's a game, really, isn't it? It's a game like darts or snooker. It's just a game. Oh, you throw the ball down and then the pins go over. Wow, how sporting. It's just a game of skill. It's aim. That doesn't mean it's a sport. And I'm sorry, driving is not a sport. NASCAR or whatever, not a sport. It's not a sport. A few months ago, me and Christian went to Berlin and we tried to go bowling there because, I don't know if you know this, but in Germany, they really like bowling. It's one of those things that is like a big part of their culture. And we found a bowling alley. I mean, there are loads of them. They're on like every corner. In the same way that like men-only hardcore sex clubs are also on every residential corner, bowling alleys are too. Because, you know, you got to have something to, you know, let off. It can't all be sex, can it? Anyway, we went to this bowling alley and it was rammed. I mean, the bowling alley we went to today was relatively empty. I mean, there was about 20 lanes and only about 4 or 5 of them were really in operation. And that's including us, lane 1. But in Germany, it was crazy. We said, can we please have a, excuse me. I even put an accent. We said, hi, excuse me, can we please have a bowling alley? Yeah, we're very much local. We'd love to throw the ball down and hit the pins. And they were like, sorry, limeys, we're fully booked for the foreseeable. So we didn't get to do bowling in Germany. So now we're we're reliving our best bowling life. And I really do like bowling. It's very satisfying. I think, I'm one of these people that I deal with a lot of frustration. I've got a lot of anger. But I don't know what to do with it on a day-to-day basis. A lot of anger at society. But when you're bowling, you can imagine that those pins at the bottom are your problems, And then you can get the big heavy ball and you can toss it down the aisle and maybe smash your problems away. Although obviously there is a mechanized structure in place to put all your problems back where they were in a perfect row. And you have to do it again in a Sisyphean fashion where the problems never quite ever go away. Maybe that's what life is. Maybe we don't realise it, but life is just one big game of bowling. And if that's true, that means right now I'm probably I'm at least on frame 4, I reckon I'm on frame 4. If you factor frame 1 is sort of like until you're 10, frame 2 is, your 20s, frame 3 is 30s. I'm coming up to frame 4. And I don't know. I'm hoping I'm going to get a strike, but you just don't know, do you? You just don't know. It could be the gutter. But yes, anyway. Birthdays are not exactly the most exciting thing as you get older. You stop sort of caring about them so much. Because the higher up in age you go, the more birthdays you have. I've technically had 35 birthdays. And if you have 35 of anything, you're going to lose interest eventually. I mean, I love pizza. I love it. But if I had to eat 35 pizzas right now, I'll be honest, it'd probably take me to at least, probably about six whole pizzas before I started to get a bit fed up. Although if the toppings were all different, maybe I could do it. Actually, it's a bad analogy because I do actually quite like pizza a lot. An awful lot. But yeah, 35. I mean, what is 35 now? I don't even know. Maybe 35 is the new 25. I am a late bloomer. I do think of my years pre-transition sort of as a bit of a write-off. Which is I don't know, maybe that's unfair. I feel like that's something that's quite taboo, maybe for trans people to say. I think a lot of our friends and family don't like to think of the idea that maybe the person that they knew wasn't really there. Because I was there. But I was functioning on autopilot. And it's funny because a lot of, your friends and family, especially the ones that don't take it well, or wish you were back the way you were or whatever, they're essentially saying to you like, oh, but we liked you better when you were on autopilot. Can you go back on autopilot? But I do get the criticism because, I was there in a way. But it is hard not to think of those years as a write-off because, well, if nothing else, I wasn't living those years to the fullest. What I'm saying is that maybe I am technically 35, but I'm gonna say I'm 25. I'm gonna take off 10 years, and I'll bring that up if I ever get ill. I'll say to the doctors, "Excuse me, you're wrong. I may be 35 on the piece of paper you got there, but guess what? I'm actually 25. I actually identify as 25." I like it when people make that joke. It's always funny. It's always fresh, always funny. I think aging is a tricky thing for most people. People don't like to age, do they? You don't like to age. No one wants to age. There's that billionaire guy. You know who I'm talking about? That tech bro guy who is trying not to age. You know who I'm talking about? Louis Theroux did an interview with him recently, but he's been around ages. He's the guy who who had his son's blood injected into him. He's like, I think he's like 49 or something, 50, in his 50s. But he claims that physically he's like 35 or something. Even to the point where he's like, yeah, my ear is 8 and this is, he's got all different ages depending on different body parts, like Mr. Potato Head. He's like a Mr. Potato Head. He's like, his ears are not as old as his nose and stuff like this. And it's like, wow, okay. No one likes to age. No one does. Some people say they do. Some people go, oh, only when I got older did I finally start to become myself. And it's like, yeah, okay, but you still kind of do want to be young. But you know what? We can't. You can't live forever. You just can't. You can't. If you're only just finding this out now through my podcast, I'm so sorry. But can you imagine that if there was like some 5-year-old watching this who hasn't yet come to terms, hasn't yet like reached the conscious level where they can fully comprehend death? And I'm like, you're gonna die. That would be funny. But yeah, the truth is we are all going to die. We are all destined for the ground. Or the furnace, whatever you want. Or one of those boxes that's made of cardboard and then they bury you like in the soil and then you become compost. It's quite nice. But I do think a lot of trans people think about aging maybe quite a lot. I think the trans brain, you cut it out and you look at it on the table and it's the trans brain, it's pink and blue, isn't it? I think the trans brain tends to think about aging maybe differently, I think a lot of us, especially, trans people of my age, possibly, we do think a lot about lost time, wasted youth. And on the positive side of it, our adulthood, our older years maybe, that tends to be the time when we start to really live our lives. So that's nice. It's good to live your life. And a lot of us are trying to make up for lost time, A lot of us are like, oh, I've got to go out, got to party, got to take loads of drugs. Got to get my time back. I got to dress really cool and, I got to sleep with loads of people. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. You do that. Go off, queen. I mean, for me, I feel like I already did that stuff. And I'm kind of okay with not doing that so much. I don't really enjoy that stuff anymore. I don't even really enjoy having a little drink now and then. I'm at a point now where I'm like, no, I'll just have a soft drink. I'll have my friends saying to me, Jen, do you want to come out and we're going to a party? It's going to be great. Come out, come to this gig or whatever. And I'm just like, listen, I'd love to, but I'd much rather stay in and record a podcast for my adoring fans. And they go, what? Why would you want to do that? And I go, because my podcast, although currently not doing huge numbers, is building slowly. And the people who are into it, they've told me that they like it. And some of them have told me that they depend on it. So if I don't do it, I'm letting people down. And then they say, but you're letting us down. And I say, no. I think that one of the most liberating things about getting older is probably just becoming more comfortable with knowing your own limits, knowing who you are in terms of what you like to do and what you don't like to do. I'm starting to have these revelations a little bit more and more now. I'm starting to think about, is this what I want to do with my life? Is this what the path I want to go down? Is not this. I'm enjoying this. I'm talking about things generally in my life. And you think to yourself stuff like, do I want to keep doing that? Is there a reason why I'm still doing this over and over again? I don't know, you just become a bit more comfortable with those ideas, and you stop sort of chasing the carrot on the stick, so to speak. In fact, well, maybe you don't stop chasing the carrot. Maybe you just find a new carrot. Maybe you just realise that you don't really like carrots. And you think, well, I've been chasing this carrot for so long. Maybe it's time to try some broccoli. And here's the fact, I already know that I love broccoli. So then you think, well, hold on, I already know that I love broccoli, so why have I been avoiding broccoli all this time and going for carrots? And you realise you've been going for carrots because of all of this pro-carrot propaganda, Bugs Bunny. But then you think, hold on, I do love Bugs Bunny. I love Bugs Bunny, and I worry sometimes that people are forgetting about bugs. People are forgetting about Bugs Bunny. Are they? I mean, are they? I know they did a new Space Jam movie, didn't they? They did Space Jam 2. I saw it because, as I say, I love Bugs Bunny. I didn't love it. I didn't like Space Jam 2 at all, really. I thought it was like reductive and just like trying to relive some of the glory days of the first one. But in a lot of ways, it was just as much an advertisement. But it just, I don't know, it lacked some of the iconicness of Space Jam. But yeah, I mean, I love Bugs Bunny, and I do worry that, like, not enough people are on board with bugs these days. In fact, Warner Brothers in general. I mean, what's going on? I know they're still around, but are they? I mean, one of the saddest things, in my opinion, is Disney being sort of like more respected and renowned and well known than Warner Brothers. Because, you know, from time to time, like, I'll catch a Disney cartoon, and if it's one of those old, goofy ones, the classic Goofies from the 40s or 50s or whatever, I'll be like, okay, fair enough, that is funny. I like Goofy. Goofy's a good character. But if it's like Mickey or Donald or any of those other idiots, I'm not laughing. I'm not. But if it's Warner Brothers, pretty much any of the big characters in there, Porky, Bugs, Daffy, Wile E. Coyote, I'm more than on board. There was just something more anarchic, something more jagged, interesting, pointed. But Disney, what's that? It's like, oh, it's Disney. Ooh, magic. Shut up. I don't want to see Mickey Mouse driving a car or whatever. Wow, big deal. Oh, he can drive a boat. Great. I want to see Bugs Bunny in a dress. I want to see Bugs Bunny up to the nines, looking cunt, looking slay, serving puss. That's what I want to see. Ultimately, that's why, isn't it? It's because Bugs Bunny is very, very queer. I don't want to get theoretical on you. I don't want to go into the queer theory of the Warner Brothers universe. But let's be real, Bugs Bunny does a lot of cross-dressing. And you get those people, don't you, that go like, it's not cross-dressing really. Not really, because at the end of the day, Bugs Bunny is a bunny. And for whatever reason, the gender norms of society don't apply to animals. Apparently, if Bugs wears a short skirt and high heels and has his tits out there, apparently he's still just as manly because he's a bunny rabbit. Well, I'm sorry, that's not the case. It is my opinion that Bugs Bunny is one of the dolls, and Bugs Bunny we should center Bugs Bunny a lot more. We should, because listen, the trans community, we love a representative. We love taking someone and being like, this is, you know, like we'll take like all of these Nepo babies right now that we've got. There is a huge, I don't want to say epidemic, because I do think they're a largely positive force. But there's this huge thing of like trans Nepo babies now. You've got Elon Musk's trans daughter, you know? She's everywhere. And do you know what? God bless her. Godspeed. The thing about her is she was dealt an extremely unfortunate hand, and she has done her very best with it. And I support her 100%. I support her 1,000%. She's cool, okay? I like her a lot. But she's still a Nepo baby. And then you've got, what's he called? Robert De Niro's trans child now has come out. Robert De Niro's got a trans daughter. Oh my God. We shouldn't be shocked that Robert De Niro has a trans daughter. We should just be shocked that Robert De Niro can still have kids. That's crazy. And listen, it's good. Let's celebrate these people. You know, let's say yippee. Hooray. We want the best for them. But let's not forget about Bugs, please. I love Bugs Bunny. If we were smart, the trans community, which we are, I know we are, but we need to start acting it, okay? And we need to stop paying so much attention to these trans Nepo babies who I love, okay? I love them. I'm their biggest fans. But we need to stop paying attention to them because they're kids, essentially. They might be adults legally, but let's be real. They're babies. They're babies in so many ways. Okay, when I see Vivian, Elon Musk's daughter, I think, this is too much too soon. This is too much. You've got her going down the catwalk now. Fashion. And I'm sure they can look after themselves. But the old person in me does think this is too much too soon. Have a break. Take a rest. If we were smart, which we are, we would have Bugs Bunny be our representative. And if we ever needed someone to debate the gender criticals or to represent us in government, we'd send in Bugs. And you know what Bugs would do? He'd be a stinker. He would. And he'd go, ain't I a stinker? And he'd probably like, what would he do? Or they. I don't know what Bugs' pronouns are. I would have to ask them. But Bugs would get up to some real mischief, I'm telling you that much. You know what Bugs would do? If Bugs Bunny had to debate Jordan Peterson, for example, do you know what Bugs would do? Bugs would, he'd like run away and Jordan Peterson would be chasing him, going, get back here, you silly rabbit. And then Bugs would like paint a tunnel on the wall, like a hole on the wall, and then Bugs would jump through it, and then his hand would come through and it would take the hole away, and Jordan Peterson would go to jump in it and smash up against the wall. Alright, well, thanks for watching and listening to Lobotomy World this week. I want to say an extra special thank you to my longtime patrons, and we've had some new ones, and I'm going to put them up on the screen now. Thank you so much to all my patrons, it really helps. If you are watching this and you would like to become a Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/lobotomyworld, and if you do, you get access to a whole extra unique podcast episode every week. And you'll have access to a whole bunch of other bonus episodes. I've put out 4 of them so far, so that's good. Also, there's like years worth of weird crap on that Patreon. So I also just want to shout out all of the new subscribers on the YouTube. That's cool. We're nearly at 1,000. We're not there yet. We're about 950. 960, something like that, but we're getting close, nearly at 1,000 subscribers, and I said that when I get 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do something wacky. I'm going to do something really crazy. So, come on, make me prove it. As always, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, it's at I'm Jen Ives. You can do that. And yeah, thanks so much. I hope you have a nice rest of your week. I'll see you next week for a non-birthday episode. And until then, keep on watching and listening to this podcast. Okay, subscribe if you haven't. Goodbye. Bye.